Hello, friends. This is Science Talk. I am your host, Jim Massa. In this video segment, I want to kind of re-emphasize, stress again, the importance that we do not forget about all the stuff that's happening with the climate. Right now, and understandably so, everyone is concerned about the COVID-19 situation, the illnesses, and the fact that it's an airborne disease and it easily spreads, understandably. But what I'm afraid of is that in the focus on this issue, climate, environmental issues, other issues like equality and science gets neglected. For those of you who are familiar with Naomi Klein's shock doctrine, you understand what I'm trying to get at. For those of you who are not, I suggest you read it. It's a very good book. Basically, the thesis of the book, for those who don't know, is that oligarchs will use dire situations to implement policies that basically screw people over. And we're actually seeing signs of that in the U.S. For example, some garbage workers went out on strike demanding protective equipment, hazard pay, and that kind of stuff. They got fired, and prisoners got sent to do the work. Stuff like that. We're already seeing, that the pharmaceutical companies are jockeying around to try and see what kind of a massive profit they can make out of whether it's therapeutics or vaccines that should come down the road to deal with this virus. So whenever there's a disaster that happens, natural, man-made, what have you, the oligarchs take advantage of it because the people are too stressed out trying to deal with what's happened, and then basically they ended up getting it up the ass in plain English. So there's that, and we've got situations. Don't forget, we still got CO2 levels are increasing now with all the social distancing. Yes, there's been, and yes, the amount of fossil fuels burned from automobiles has reduced. In fact, I think the measurement is something I thought I saw around 8.6%, I think was the value that I saw. That's good. However, we still have very warm temperatures in the Arctic, and it's still warming. Siberia has been literally burning up, not fires, but it's just been so hot there that the ground is massively thawing out, which means methane, loads of methane being released. Methane's a powerful greenhouse gas. So we're still going to see temperatures increase. And with this, the oceans have absorbed so much energy, so the ocean sea surface temperatures are higher. Gas solubility decreases with increased water temperature. So now you're going to expect to see some outgassing of CO2 from the ocean, adding to the levels. So I have argued before that even if all human emissions were to go to zero this moment, there's enough thermal inertia in the system that temperatures will continue to rise. Now, some of the projections have been saying, 3 to 5 degrees C by the end of the century. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how long the social distancing goes on for. We'll have to see what exactly is the amount of less fossil fuels being burned and added to the atmosphere. And once we have that data, scientists can then refigure the models. But keep in mind, okay, you may not be driving around, but we still live in houses that most of us get our power from a power company, power plant. Most power plants burn coal, gas, diesel, fossil fuels. So you're still going to be adding that into the atmosphere. Then we have issues like coral bleaching. We have acidification of the ocean. Look what happened to Australia with the massive fires they suffered through. Not to mention that the Great Barrier Reef is in extreme stress, extreme danger. There's massive bleaching going on there. You have crop yields decreasing, and whatever crops are harvested, the nutritional value is less. You have, of course, all the alpine glaciers melting, the great ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland melting. You have less and less Arctic sea ice. And of course, with that, you have more open waters, which means the water absorbs the heat energy, doesn't reflect it back into space. Now you have latent heat energy, high specific heat capacity of water that gives off that heat during the winter time, more precipitation, but then you have basically later time of the year for the sea ice to form. The extent is not as much, the thickness is not as much, so we have seen decreased volume. In fact, over the last 30 years or so, the extent of Arctic sea ice has decreased by approximately 17%. The volume of the sea ice has decreased by approximately 35%. There's less and less multi-year ice. So we still have all these things going on. You know, there's the issue with biodiversity. Then there's the issue of dry areas become drier, so you get more droughts, or wet areas become wetter, so now you have flash floods and you know flooding, etc. More severe storms. All of these are the effects of what humans have done to this planet via burning fossil fuels. I have discussed many of these topics in my videos before, and those of you who have been following me know all too well the work I have done, and I thank you for following me. For those who are new to my channel, please go check out the videos there. So we still need to stay focused on the climate issues. Yes, the coronavirus is serious. Yes, it threatens us. But if we don't do anything about the climate, that also threatens us as well. Now, I've discussed with you before, feedback loops, such as, a well-known example that I use, which I think illustrates very nicely. You warm the atmosphere, permafrost thaws, methane is released from microbial action. Methane traps more heat, temperatures increase some more permafrost thaws, more methane release, etc., etc. Now, the other thing that's interesting with this, with global warming, is that we may be unleashing pathogens, be it a virus. Okay, we got the coronavirus, but don't forget we had the Ebola, we had the Zika, we had SARS, and MERS. Right? We had those viruses. So we don't know, how many other potential pandemics we could unleash. I saw a report recently that some virologists are saying it's not going to end with coronavirus. There's going to be a pile more following. You've got stuff thawing out of the Arctic, out of the permafrost. Who knows what's there? I have a story coming up where I talk about a lark type of bird that thawed out of the permafrost, and it looks like it had just died, and the thing was like 40,000 years old. So there could be potential diseases thawing out of the permafrost right this moment. So we have some issues to deal with. So it's not just the coronavirus, but it still is the climate change. It still is a major threat. Now, you've heard me discuss, tipping points, at what a situation where once you get beyond this level there, it's basically game over. Can't really not too much to do because the inertia, the momentum continues. Scientists discuss this. There are those who say we've surpassed the tipping point. Others say we are close to it. Depends who you talk to. My assessment is that we have passed the tipping point, but if we haven't, we're damn close to passing the tipping point. That's my assessment. So, how did we get here? Now it's easy to say, well, the Industrial Revolution, we started, oil was right there. You drill a hole in the ground, and there's your geyser and your gusher, and you just burn it, and yeehaw, off we go. It's easy to say that, but it actually goes back further. It goes back to not only the Industrial Revolution, but the Enlightenment. Okay? You had influential thinkers saying that humans can use science, technology to overpower nature and then harness nature, bend it to the will of humanity. Well, if that isn't hubris, I'm not sure what is, but that's extremely hubristic in his thinking and his approach, and it persists to this day. Oh, we'll find technology to save our bacon. Not really. I mean, I have, for example, discussed some of the crazy geoengineering schemes that folks have come up with to try and change what's going on. Well, there's too many parameters to successfully model the unknown interactions, and any slight change in initial conditions, any little perturbation, you're going to end up with so many different results you cannot accurately model for that. Chaos theory, basically. So, geoengineering is silly. It's not going to save our bacon. And the notion of trying, which geoengineering is one of those types of approaches of using technology to try and make things better for us. Now, I just want to, in light of this, share with you a quote from the French mathematician René Descartes. He wrote of using science and human knowledge so that we, quote, we can render ourselves the masters and possessors of nature. That attitude to have. And when you think about it, this underlying notion of just using nature, bending it to our will, to master nature, subject it to what we want, has been pervasive for the last 3 centuries. And basically what's happened in the last 3 centuries or so, capitalism. Okay? And the problem with capitalism is that it exploits resources, it exploits people, it's an exploitive system. It is predicated on 2 very faulty assumptions. The first is that resources are infinite. No. Now, it may have seemed that way in 1600, 1700, but no, resources are not infinite. And the second notion is that all that matters is growth. Okay? Look at this rush now to reopen the economy, put people back to work. So what if they get sick and die? We got to have our profits. Profits before people. Wrong. The notion of capitalism having continued growth, well, you know what continued growth in an organism is called? Called cancer. Trying to have infinite growth on a finite planet, finite resources, is a recipe for disaster. And we're starting to see some of this coming home to bite us in the ass. So capitalism as it is now is a threat to the planet. And it will be our undoing as we're seeing this now. Now, after all this settles down, who knows? And this is probably going to be here 1, 2, maybe 3 years. And then we say, oh, how long before we get back to normal, how it was before? Well, I for one, don't want to go back to how it was before with the oligarchs basically screwing us over, throwing us crumbs. I personally don't want that. We need a system where people are put first. We need to, if you're going to have capitalism, you need to retool it not for continued growth, but for sustainability. That's just my opinion. I'm no economist, but if you want to listen to an economist who does a wonderful job of explaining all this, given it the historical background and solutions, Professor Richard Wolff is the man. So, in addition to all the litany of environmental stuff going on, don't forget there's, deforestation, you know, there's dredging, mining, all that kind of stuff there that, is basically insults to the planet. There's overfishing, so that the fish stocks are not sustainable. And I've discussed this in other videos. There's too many people on the planet for the available resources. That's just the blunt truth. So in light of this, okay. Oh yeah, and what's the other thing? You got to continue oil drilling, fracking, right? Gas drilling, all the other stuff. More insults. So what humans are doing to the planet has basically led some analysts to kind of reevaluate, rethink humans' place with respect to the natural world. And basically, they've reconceptualized Earth kind of as a complex matrix of living inorganic system, biotic, abiotic aspects, trying to get to some sort of a stable balance, homeostasis, if you will. And you guys probably already guessed where I'm going with this. This has led famously to the environmental scientist James Lovelock, who in the 1960s described what is now known as the Gaia hypothesis. And Gaia is in the ancient Greek world was a goddess that was the ancestral mother of all life. And basically, the essence of Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis is that the Earth itself is a living organism. You have, circulation of the water. For example, when you at the subduction zones, where one plate dives under another, it takes oceanic water with it, and that goes through the mantle and so forth. But at the mid-oceanic ridges, where the plates separate, you have some of that water emerge with the magma that comes up with that. So you have like a circulatory system. Mountains get built up, mountains get eroded down. You have the biogeochemical cycles, etc. And it's all an intricately woven together between the animals, the various chemical species, the flora, the fauna, etc., the microbes, the fungi, bacteria, and viruses. So basically, there are, we have fundamentally changed this planet. We have altered the chemistry, and altering the chemistry, we've also altered the physics. Right, jet streams are dipping down. That's we're changing the physics. The when we study this in fluid dynamics, so we're changing the physics. We're changing the chemistry. We're changing the balance, and and we're not even putting aside the greenhouse effect, etc. Okay, and we know what's going on. Like the CO2 is absorbing the heat, etc. So we know all of that. Okay, but we have done so much to alter our environment that to think we could go on forever doing so and not face repercussions. Another example of hubris. So I mentioned before, more powerful storms. I mean, just look, you know, Katrina, Sandy, Harvey, what's it, those several that hit Puerto Rico, Irma Maria, right? Florence, Dorian, right? So we have all these powerful storms. Then we got the typhoons out in the Pacific. I already mentioned the wildfires that and in Australia, we have wildfires burning in the boreal forests, the high latitude, the high Arctic, Sweden, Alaska. Just last summer, there was a fire less than 20 miles from my house. So we have all these changes that we've brought to the planet, and there were some who basically saying Mother Nature has basically said enough of this shit, and we're fighting back. Mother Nature is fighting back. Mother Nature can only take so many insults. And you can call this a singularity event, a nonlinear event, a tipping point, whatever you want to call it. But Mother Nature has basically said, I've had enough of this species and time to take care of this virus. So, what's my take of the Gaia hypothesis? Is Earth a living organism? I view it more as a metaphor for the fact that our planet Earth is a complex system. Everything's intricately woven together. The take home message is that because everything is intricately woven together, that any upset, any misdirection, if you will, is going to alter the balance, and then, employing chaos theory, you perturb the system, and then you end up with something that's radically different. Since the planet came out of the last ice age, the environment on planet Earth has been very stable, and in the last 150 years or so, we have really fucked things up, to be blunt. And because humans have perturbed the system so much, planet Earth is trying to find its new equilibrium state. But the system keeps being continually perturbed so that the planet cannot find its new equilibrium state, cannot settle into that new condition. And this is where you start getting the positive feedback loops, where it becomes exacerbating, that situations become, they run away, become out of control. And we are seeing that now. Scientists have always assumed, well, the changes will happen pretty much in a linear manner. Now we're saying, oh shit, it's more exponential. We are seeing faster and faster melting, faster and faster air temperature increases, and so forth. So when you even get the IPCC of all organizations basically saying, hey guys, we got to do something by 2030 or we're kind of screwed, the IPCC that tends to underplay everything. Situation is dire. So some other ramifications of what we're doing. I've already mentioned you might have stuff thawing out of the ground in the high Arctic that you don't know what kind of pandemics are going to be unleashed from there. But with a warming planet, for the most part, warming planet allows vectors that transmit diseases to spread. Mosquitoes are great at transporting disease organisms. So diseases that might have been confined to the tropics now find their way to subtropical, perhaps temperate regions. Diseases in the temperate regions now finding their way to the subpolar and polar regions. And a lot of these diseases, humankind have not encountered before. Well, we've encountered quite a few of them, but there are others we have not encountered. And when we do, the results are not good. As illustrated by this coronavirus. So, that's where we're headed. And I want to read for you a quote from Michael Clare, who is a author that looks at such manners of what humans are doing to the planet. He's written articles on, the Arctic being a staging area for a war. If you want to get a sense of some of the things he's written, go to the TomDispatch.com website, and then look up his articles in there. He writes some very thought-provoking pieces for that publication. So I'm going to quote something that he wrote, and it's a piece called "The Planet Strikes Back." And in this piece, he focused on ways in which humans have been, in his word, inviting the planet's ire. And he looked in particular, was looking at the depredations of human-induced climate change. So this is what he said, quote, "We inhabit a new place, already changed dramatically by the intervention of humankind. But we are not acting upon a passive, impotent entity, unable to defend itself against human transgression. Sad to say, we will learn to our dismay of the immense powers available to Earth, the Avenger." So yes, be concerned about coronavirus. Let's not lose track of what we're doing to the planet. We need to change and mitigate all the environmental insults and degradations on the planet if we are to survive as a species. So I wanted to make this video more, I guess you can call it an editorial from me, but I consider it to be important. I'm concerned about the state of things, not just from this virus, but just overall condition of the ecosystem of the biomes, planet Earth. Anyone thinks we're going to settle Mars anytime soon? Give me a break. Not likely. And I'll close with this. There's a sign I used to hang in the research institute I worked at. A good planet is hard to find. Thank you for your time. Hello folks, this is Jim here with Science Talk, asking you to please subscribe to my channel and to inform others of my channel and of the work that I do. Please share to social media platforms that you use. Also, as a reminder, don't forget to click the bell so that you know when I load up more videos. Finally, I ask that you support the work that I do by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your support.